You may have seen headlines like this, and even this. But such claims are not entirely accurate. Elon Musk's net worth has fallen from $320 billion in November of 2021 to $145 billion at the time of recording this video in January of 2023. That's a loss of $175 billion in just 13 months. It's an open and shut case, right? Wrong! Elon didn't really lose all this money because he never had it in the first place. Just like my girlfriend, this money was always imaginary. Allow me to explain. To simplify things, I will use potatoes to explain stock market speculation and the creation of imaginary money. Let's begin. You're running along a beach one day when you're struck by lightning. You pass out for 24 hours, and when you wake up, you find yourself in the most depressing place in the world. The sun never shines. It rains all the time, and the only colors you ever see are brown, gray, and misery. This place is a tiny island in the middle of the North Sea. It's ruled by Germans and populated by rejects from the Roman Empire. Of course, I'm talking about England. The powers that be drop you off at this village in Dorset. Your first problem is food. But the only food they have in England is boiled mud. You decide to drown your sorrows in alcohol, but then you discover a dark secret about British beer. It's actually hospice. Now, that is simply unacceptable. You're depressed, but you also sense a business opportunity here. Time to introduce those poor Britons to actual food. The burger? No, that's too good for them. Except you, Tom. You can have whatever you want.
Thank you.
What you give the people of England is a boiled potato without salt. But you don't have any potatoes or money. Luckily for you, you know someone who does. Your grandpa in Idaho. So you give him a call.
I will give you all my potatoes for 50% of your company.
Deal.
You and grandpa register a new company. We call it BP, British Potato.
Potatoes.
BP is an instant hit. The potato is the best thing those sad monarchists have tasted ever since they were kicked out of India. They buy your unsalted boiled potatoes like there's no tomorrow.
Potatoes.
The money is pouring in and the business is good. You expand your operations throughout southwestern Britain. You sell unsalted boiled potatoes in Bournemouth, Plymouth, and Portsmouth. But your dream is to sell unsalted boiled potatoes in London. The only thing stopping you? You just don't have enough money to service that market. You make 100 million selling your boiled potatoes in the counties of southern Britain. To sell enough potatoes to feed the 9 million people living in the closets of London, you need to buy a lot of boilers, fuel for those boilers, and more potatoes than your grandpa's farm can produce. All this stuff will cost you 200 million. After some brainstorming, you decide to take your company public on the stock exchange in order to raise the money. You and your grandpa sit down and value your business. You have annual revenues of 100 million, so at a 10x revenue multiple, you decide that your business is worth $1 billion. The two of you issue 1 billion shares in British Potato. You retain 400 million shares each and sell the remaining 200 million shares to the general public at $1 per share. This is what is called an IPO. At $1 per share, the 200 million BP shares of the open market fetch you $200 million. You and your grandpa own 80% of British Potato, while the general public owns 20%. Your shares are worth 400 million. Your grandpa's shares are also worth 400 million. With the 200 million you have raised from the IPO, you buy boilers, pots, and all the potatoes you will ever need. You even buy salt and pepper because Londoners think they're too fancy for the rest of England. You boil your potatoes, can them, and sell them in London. Once again, they sell out every single day. In 1 year, the revenues of British Potato doubled from 100 million to 200 million. Investors see this and suddenly all of them want to buy shares in BP. The shares that you issued at $1 now start trading at $2, then $3, then $4, then $5. At the $5 stock price, your 400 million shares are now worth $2 billion. You're a billionaire. But British Potato isn't making 5 times as much money as it did before. The company that was valued at a 10x revenue multiple is now valued at a 25x multiple for no reason other than speculation. Also, your shares are not trading. Of the 1 billion shares of British Potato that exist, you and your grandpa own 800 million. You're not selling. Of the remaining 200 million shares, 100 million shares are owned by pension funds. These usually invest for the long term, so they are not selling either. It is the last 100 million of your shares that are involved in all the trading. These are the shares owned by hedge funds, trading bots, and 19-year-olds who downloaded Robinhood last week. Do you see the problem now? There is an artificial scarcity of British Potato shares in the market. Only 10% of BP shares are available for trade, and people are speculating hard. You introduce a new baked potato to a lineup, and the stock trading bots buy more shares because they think your sales will go up. As the bots buy, other investors pile on, and your stock price goes from $5 to $6 in 1 day, even though British Potato isn't making any more money. The rise in your share price is fueled entirely by projections, speculation, plus the hopes and dreams of Wall Street bets bros. Your net worth also goes up from 2 billion to 2.4 billion. This is because every time a single share in your company is traded, all the other 999 million shares are revalued at the new price. The extra 400 million that you made in a day literally came out of thin air. That money is not real. It's just a result of share revaluation. As this goes on, some hedge funds realize that your company's stock is overvalued, so they start shorting it. The 19-year-olds on Robinhood realize this, and because they hate hedge funds, they go long instead. Suddenly, you have a horde of 1 million youngsters with $200 to lose, snapping up every share of British Potato the moment it comes onto the market. Every time an investor buys your shares and holds them, there are fewer shares available for open trading. So the supply of shares is reduced from 10% to 9%, then 8%, all the way down to 0.1%. Remember what we said about an artificially scarce supply of shares. As the shares get scarcer, the price gets even higher. The holders are happy because the price is going up. Non-holders are not happy because they feel like they're missing out on free money. So they offer the holders more money than your company's shares are actually worth because they think there is still room for upward movement. I mean, stocks only go up, right? As the shares become scarcer and more investors grow desperate to buy in, the stock in British Potato shoots up from $6 a share to $100 a share in just a couple of months. The stock is going to the moon, but the company is still making the same amount of money. You go from a valuation that is 25x the revenue multiple to one that is 500x the revenue. This is what is called a speculative bubble. It's a mass collective delusion, but it's just that, a delusion. Even if it trades at $100 a share, British Potato is only making 200 million a year. But it's good news for you. Kinda. At 100 a share, British Potato is valued at $100 billion. Your 40% stake is now worth $40 billion. With a net worth of $40 billion, you're not just a billionaire. You're the richest person in England. But all bubbles have to burst, eventually. because as more people buy and hold your shares, there are fewer and fewer shares available in the open market. But investors are not buying your stock for fun. They want to make money. Unless your profits climb by 1,000% in 6 months to match your share price, which is impossible. The only way for your investors to make money is by cashing out. As investors cash out, more shares suddenly become available, and the price drops from $100 a share to $90. As the price drops, investors who bought in at 100 sell their shares as quickly as they can to cut their losses. This makes the price drop even further, and now BP starts trading at $80. As it hits 80, the guys who bought in at 70 start selling their shares so they can at least make a small profit. But their selling makes the share price drop even more. The result is a downward spiral as investors sell to either make a profit before the price tanks further or cut their losses. After 2 or 3 months of volatility, the stock price settles at $2, from a high of 100 to a low of 2, all in the space of a year. Your net worth drops from 40 billion to 800 million. You have lost $39.2 billion. You're still rich, but you're no longer the richest man in England. But this begs the philosophical question: did you really lose $39.2 billion? The answer is no. That wasn't money in your bank account. You never touched it, and you never smelled it. It was just the valuation of an overpriced asset stuck in a speculative bubble. It's not as if you could sell at the top of the bubble either. That would just spook other investors and burst the bubble even faster. And you also can't sell your shares secretly because that would expose you to criminal charges. You have to hold whether you like it or not. After the bubble bursts and the market self-corrects, the stock price settles at a more reasonable $2. Your shares in British Potato go from a ridiculous $40 billion valuation to a more reasonable $800 million. And that, my friends, is what happened to Elon Musk and Tesla. The share price got too high because of speculation. When the speculative bubble burst, everything returned back to earth where it belongs. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you enjoyed the video.